My name is Thomas Edgel, and I'm here with Marley Geddes. And we're here to talk with you about ArcGIS Enterprise customization and administration. Now, if any of you were in my last session an hour ago, I apologize. I'm going to do a poll of the crowd, and it's the exact same one. So if I can get a show of hands of anybody here that is already an existing ArcGIS Enterprise administrator. Sweet, it's like the whole room, awesome. How many of you have maybe worked with just ArcGIS Server in the past and you moved into ArcGIS Enterprise? Awesome, so a lot of long-time users. And how about ArcGIS Online? Are any of you actively administering ArcGIS Online or? Awesome, so a good amount of people everywhere. So we hope that we can deliver a presentation that touches on some of the most important aspects of your role as an administrator and give some recommendations, best practices, and demonstrations for helpful workflows. Some of this might look similar to ArcGIS Online if you do administer ArcGIS Online, but there's also some really cool new features and user types that we want to also showcase. So feel free to stay tuned. There's good content, we swear. So to start, we're going to be going over some assumptions for what we expect our audience should be aware of. Next, we're going to go and do a brief overview of ArcGIS Enterprise's architecture and its administrative endpoints. New at 10.7 is some big changes to our user type licensing, so we're going to make sure to talk about that and do a brief demonstration. And following that, we're going to talk about a series of workflows which are helpful for administrators, centered around the responsibilities of helpful initial configurations, and then workflows that are more likely to be done on a daily or a regular basis. And then we're going to end with some quick tips. So to begin, before we get into the presentation, there are a couple of assumptions that we've made about our audience here. We had a previous session an hour ago which went over the specifics of ArcGIS Enterprise and its capabilities, and we're going to be doing a brief recap next. But we are going to be using the names of software components, and so we recommend that some familiarity with the ArcGIS Enterprise product and its capabilities are there, because that will be helpful. We're also assuming the use of the base ArcGIS Enterprise deployment. So we will show a diagram of this, but this essentially means that you're using a hosting server with an enterprise portal and web adapters connected to both. Finally, we're assuming that you already have this ArcGIS Enterprise installed and configured. So if you'd like to know more information about the install and configuration specifics, we've got plenty of folks out in the showcase who can talk with you about that. We are focusing on administrative tasks that happen afterwards in your daily work with ArcGIS Enterprise. So to begin, you'll likely be familiar with this diagram. This depicts the ArcGIS Enterprise base deployment. Okay. Here we can see the full power of your ArcGIS Enterprise unlocked. Is that okay?
Can you guys see?
Somebody unplugged.
Oh.
Are you guys able to see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So, so this is the full ArcGIS Enterprise-based deployment. This is 4 software components that are working together as one product, which is ArcGIS Enterprise. These are all vital, and they all have their own administrative endpoints that you as an administrator should be aware of. These administrative endpoints are the ArcGIS Enterprise portal, the ArcGIS Server Manager, the REST API directories, and command line utilities. And I'm going to do a brief overview of each of these. So to start, we have the ArcGIS Enterprise portal. You'll spend a large bulk of your work, and it's where most of our demos are taking place today. You can do a wide range of administrative workflows here, like updating your homepage, creating custom application templates, making custom base maps and configuring them, configuring utility services, federating servers, collaboration, and much, much more. Following that is ArcGIS Server Manager. If you have any experience with standalone servers, you're probably very familiar with this. This is just a quick animation that shows just an overview of Server Manager. But this is a interface where many commonly used workflows are done, like registering data stores, adding extensibility through SOEs or SOIs, editing your server directories, or working with server logs. ArcGIS Server Manager also comes with a lot of helpful cache your map services or printing tools for printing. So as an administrator, you might need to go to these areas to do troubleshooting workflows, or maybe to configure the services to work better for you. Next up is the ArcGIS REST API directories. There's two main directories to be aware of here, the server one and the portal one. What these both do is give administrators a virtualized interface for our REST API. And it gives you some assistance with developing a programmatic solution to administration. So we definitely consider these more of advanced aspects of administration in ArcGIS Enterprise, but it's worth knowing about because the REST API is the underlying process where all of Esri's enterprise administration is founded on. For example, if you are using ArcGIS Pro and you do an administrative task, in the back end, this is all happening through the API. The REST API also works with any scripting language that can make HTTPS requests and parse a response. So you can hook into the REST API with JavaScript, Python, Ruby, C#, Perl, the list goes on. There's some workflows which also must be done through the REST API which aren't available in other administrator endpoints. So consider these directories your secret weapon to being a powerful administrator. We have a lot of helpful documentation on this and folks in the area who can explain this further. So come find us if you want to learn some more about that. Last but certainly not least is the command line utilities. These are found in the installed directories for portal, server, and the data store. And they're very powerful tools that allow for administration from batch files or command line. Much like the REST API directories, there's some tasks available through here which are not possible in other administrator endpoints, like working with a data store or doing a security best practices check. There's other tasks as well that you can kind of see through the screenshot here. But we highly recommend that you take a look at the different tools here in your deployments and look at our documentation because it'll give you some descriptions on how to use them and some good workflows.
All right, thanks, Thomas. Can everyone hear me in the back? Perfect. Okay, before diving into the administration of ArcGIS Enterprise, I'm going to talk about the licensing changes that are coming in 10.7. So those of you who are administrators of an ArcGIS online organization are likely familiar with user type licensing as it was released in the December release of ArcGIS Online. We have updated the way that you license your users from levels to user types to support more custom licensing options that you can use to tailor to your organization. The changes to user type licensing will impact some of the administrative workflows in the Enterprise portal. We believe that it is valuable to provide an overview of what user types are and show you how they are administered within the software. It is important to understand how your users are licensed, as it is your users that power your Enterprise portal. It is your users that create, analyze, collaborate, and share content with other members of the organization or with the public. It is your user types that provide your users with the capabilities and the apps that they need to do their work. A user type is their identity, the capabilities that they have within the software, and the apps that they can use. Different capability and app combinations define a user type. In the version of ArcGIS Enterprise that most of you are likely using, your members' identity and capabilities are defined by levels. We had two levels, level 1 and level 2. Your level 1 users only have the capability to view content that is shared to them, whereas level 2 users have the full capability within an organization. Level 1 and level 2 licenses are not going away with the change to user types. The capabilities for these licenses are staying the same, but we have aligned them with a new and more descriptive name. So a level 1 will now be called a viewer, and a level 2 will be called a creator. Users assigned level 1 and level 2 equivalent user types will not see a difference in the way that they interact with the software. What is new is that we have added 3 new user types, giving you more flexible options. This is something that many of our customers have been asking for. With these 3 new user types, you can better match your users and the work that they do with the capabilities and apps that they have access to. The new user types are editor, field worker, and the GIS professional. So let's take a closer look at each of these user types. As mentioned before, you should be familiar with the viewer and the creator as they are functionally equivalent to today's level 1 and level 2 licenses. A viewer can view private content that is shared with them, and a creator can create, analyze, share content, or administer users and content. So moving forward from the viewer, An editor has the capability of a viewer, but can additionally edit existing data. A field worker has the exact same capabilities as an editor, but also has access to the field apps. Lastly, moving forward from Creator, a GIS professional adds ArcGIS Pro to the Creator user type. So it is pretty easy. Level 1 becomes a viewer, Level 2 is a creator, and you have these 3 other options that you can use to tailor to your organization. As you can see, each user type includes the apps that they need to do their work. So as you can see in the diagram, everyone gets a set of the essential apps. The field worker also gets a bundle of the field apps. The creator also gets an Office bundle, and the GIS professional gets all that plus ArcGIS Pro. You can also add additional apps and match your users' capabilities with any apps that they need to perform their work. So I know this is a lot of new information to take in, but if you have any questions or concerns, we'd be happy to answer after the session or at the showcase. So that was a brief overview of what user types are and what is available for this next release. So now let's talk about what the changes you can expect to see in 10.7 related to the new user type licensing. The first change you will notice is in Esri when you go to provision licenses for 10.7. Esri has been redesigned to support a more streamlined licensing experience. I'm not going to go into this too much, but if this is something that interests you, I encourage you to stop by the licensing topic at the island, and we'll step you through that process. However, one key difference from the previous version is that you will only download one license file from Esri for your enterprise portal. This will be a JSON file that contains all your enterprise portal user types and application licenses. Previously, you would receive separate license files for your portal named users and applications that you wanted to license for. And now this is all included in one file. For those of you who may be installing Portal for ArcGIS at 10.7, there's a small change worth noting. Up until 10.7, you were required to run the Portal Software Authorization Wizard to authorize your enterprise portal. You would input an authorization file or ECP codes to authorize your portal Level 1 and Level 2 named users. At 10.7, there is no Portal Authorization Wizard. Instead, after installing the software, you will need to import the portal license file as part of the Create Site workflow. And don't worry, we walk you through this process. It's pretty simple. There are some workflow changes and considerations when upgrading to ArcGIS Enterprise 10.7 or versions after this, in which user types have been introduced. I'm not going to discuss these as there's an Upgrading ArcGIS Enterprise session after this one today and another offering on Friday. If you have any questions or concerns regarding upgrades, I suggest that you attend one of these sessions, or otherwise, we would be happy to help you at the showcase anytime this week. The most significant changes you'll notice related to user types in 10.7 is the workflow for managing licenses in your enterprise portal. The organization page has been redesigned to handle user types as well as adopt a more modern look and feel. With that, there is new workflows for managing your users and add-on licenses. So I thought it would be more effective to walk you through the redesigned organization page and step through some of the main workflows for managing your user types and add-on licenses using a demo. Can you guys see my organization page? Perfect. So this is the organization page for demo portal that I set up for this session. Here you'll see 5 different tabs along the top: Overview, Members, Licenses, Status, and Settings. I'm going to be focusing on the Overview, Members, and Licenses tabs as they are the most impacted with this user type change. So you'll see that there's 2 cards on the Overview tab: Members and Add-on Licenses. The Members card summarizes key information about my portal members' licenses. So you'll see a list of the user types that my organization has licensed, in this case, creator and viewer. And you'll see the number of licenses assigned and the number of licenses available, as well as a summary of the total number of members in my portal and licenses available. If I click on Add Members at the top, it would open a dialog in which I could add members directly. And if I clicked on the Manage Member link, it would open up the Members tab. Similarly, the Add-on Licenses tab shows the add-on applications that are licensed for my organization, and it shows the number of assigned and the number of available licenses. If I were to click on Manage Add-on Licenses, it would open up the Licenses tab. At the bottom, we just display some of your portal's latest content. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Manage Members to open up the Members tab. Here, similar to previous releases, you'll see a list of all of your portal members. New at 10.7 is the ability to filter members based on user type and role. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Viewer, and you'll see that my members are filtered by those assigned the viewer user type. If I click here on the ellipsis, you'll see that there's new options for managing your user licenses, groups, items, and other member information. So here you'll see that I have a member named Thomas, and he is assigned the viewer user type and the viewer role. So I know that Thomas is going to be showing you some more administrative workflows later in this session, so I'll need to assign him the administrator role. So if you click here, you'll see that that role is not available because it is not compatible with the viewer user type. So I'm going to have to update Thomas to the creator user type. So if I click here, I can click on Manage User Types. And this will open up the option for me to update Thomas's user type and role. So here you'll see the list of available user types for your organization. You'll see the number of licenses available, as well as the app bundles that are included in each of these user types. So I'm going to click on the creator user type. You can see that the essential, field, and office app bundles are included, and that this user type is compatible with all roles and licenses. In addition, I'm going to update Thomas's role to the administrator. If I click Save, you can see that Thomas disappears from this view, and that's because I have the user type viewer filter. And now if I remove that, you can see that Thomas shows with the updated creator user type and the administrator role. So let's go ahead and assign Thomas the ArcGIS Pro license. I could do that in two ways from the Members tab. I could click here, and I could click Manage Add-on Licenses, or I could select Thomas or multiple members and manage add-on licenses in bulk. But I just want to update this for Thomas, so I'm going to click Manage Add-on Licenses. Here you'll see a list of available add-on licenses for your organization. So I'm going to go ahead and click Pro Standard, which will then expose the extensions that I have licensed, and I'll select all. I'm going to click Save. See up here that the licenses were updated for one member. All right, so now I'm going to move along to the Licenses tab. Here's where you can find license information for your add-on and user type licenses. So I'm going to start with user types. Here you'll see a list of your user types that you have licensed for your organization. You can see the number assigned and number of available licenses, as well as the expiration date for those licenses exposed in the UI. The definition or description for user types are embedded directly into the UI. So if I click on Included Licenses, you'll see that you will see a list of the included applications with each user type. If I click on the Compatible Add-on Licenses, you will see a list of the licenses that I have available in my organization that are compatible with the creator user type. Similarly, you'll see a list of the compatible roles that can be assigned to a creator, which in this case is all the roles that are available. All right, so let's move on to add-on licenses. Oops. Here you'll see a list of the add-on licenses that are available for your organization. Again, the number of assigned and number of available licenses. And directly in this UI, you are able to unassign and assign add-on licenses. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to assign Thomas the Insights for ArcGIS license. So when I click Assign, this opens up the Assign dialog for this application. You'll see a list of all of your portal members. Those that have a compatible user type will have the option to assign the app license. Those that do not have a compatible user type will see this not compatible with members user type message. So I'm going to go ahead and assign this app to Thomas. I'm going to close. You'll see that this count is directly updated in the UI. So now I have 0 app licenses available and 2 assigned. So that's the end of my demo of the new organization page updates related to user types and managing licenses. I'm going to dive a bit deeper into user management in a later demo that will show importing a new license file and adding a member. But now back to Thomas.
Hey, can you see the slides up there? Sorry, we can't see. Yeah, good. Thank you. Okay, So with the administrative endpoints and the major licensing changes behind us, let's dive into a few of the main workflows that you may be responsible for as an administrator. We have categorized administrator responsibilities into two broad categories: initial configuration and then daily administrative tasks. Now, you'll likely be responsible for configuring some key organizational settings following the initial install and config of your ArcGIS Enterprise. And the two main ones we wanted to talk about are configuring security and then customizing the look and the feel of your site, starting with securing your organization. So just a brief overview, as an administrator, why should you care about security? Well, your organization likely has some security requirements and regulations that they must meet, so really you probably have no choice as an administrator but to care about securing your organization. Next up, you might want to make sure that your member information has its integrity maintained and avoid unauthorized tampering. Securing your organization is also important in protecting the confidentiality of your member information and their private data, and we also urge you to be proactive in securing your organization. You really shouldn't wait for a security threat to become a reality before you have to think about security in the first place. Now, we suggest following security best practices for ArcGIS Enterprise to reduce the vulnerability and lower your organization's risk to security threats. Here's a list of the security best practices, but you don't have to worry about scribbling this down too much because we got it directly from our security help topic in our documentation, and we're going to link to that at the end of the session if you wanted to get the slides. But as an administrator, we do encourage you to consider these best practices when securing your organization. At the very least, we highly recommend that you configure HTTPS access to your portal and, if applicable, disable anonymous access. New installs of both Portal for ArcGIS and Server for ArcGIS at 10.7 will have HTTPS configured by default, but if you're upgrading to 10.7 and you didn't enable HTTPS, then your upgraded environment will not have HTTPS enabled, so you might want to go back to your environments and just make sure that that's enabled. It's also worth noting that in the command line directories for both Portal and Server that I mentioned earlier, we have command line tools which perform a security audit on your system, and it runs through the best practices. The tool returns an output, almost like a report card of sorts, which lets you know various recommendations for tightening your security. We don't have a demo for that command line tool, but we do have a security area in the ArcGIS Enterprise island out there, so please feel free to come by and we have people that can talk more about it and demo it. But within the Enterprise portal, I'm going to do a brief demo where I just go over the security settings and disable anonymous authentication. So I'm here in the ArcGIS Enterprise portal that Marley configured, and thanks to her user management wizardry, I can now get in as an administrator. So I have the option to see the settings here. When I go into the organization settings, this gives you an overview page where you can configure a lot of different really helpful things about your ArcGIS Enterprise portal. You can go through general, you can configure the home page, you can configure your galleries, your default map settings, and more. And I'm going to go over a couple of these in different demos, so I'll just focus on the security one down here, which if you're caring about security, you should go here first. Now, over here, we have some of the main security policies, and these are the two which I wanted to really draw attention to. Right now, we allow anonymous access to our portal, and it might be a best practice to disable that so that there are no anonymous people that can go in. They have to have a user type in order to see the content in your portal. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck that. Next up, we did not enable HTTPS on this ArcGIS Enterprise. Maybe we updated it from a previous version that didn't have it installed or enabled. So we're going to go ahead and check this box, which allows access to Portal through HTTPS only. While I'm on this page, this isn't in our best practices, but we do have some really cool things you can do with password policies or how your members can share your content. If you had enterprise logins, you could also configure that here or configure trusted servers. With a password policy, it's kind of cool because you can make it so that your users' passwords have to have things like an uppercase letter or a number, or you'll make sure that they expire every 30 days or something like that. Anyways, with those settings made, we're going to go ahead and hit save, and that will configure the security settings on our ArcGIS Enterprise. So where we were accessing it over HTTP before, now we should be accessing it over HTTPS. And if you see that here, we have a little lock icon on the URL, and it's Chrome doesn't show, but there we go. HTTPS is being used there. Back to me again. Can you see? Okay. So we wanted to take a moment here to plug the session coming up on ArcGIS Enterprise and SSL considerations. It's taking place on Thursday and Friday, and it will give you a deeper overview into other security considerations and maybe just SSL questions if you had them. So now that we've taken a look at securing your organization, we'll show you how to really make it your own by customizing the look and the feel of your site. Why should you care about customizing your homepage? Well, there's several reasons why you as the administrator should care about that. First off, branding. You may need to meet the requirements of your organization's branding scheme, so you might need to use specific names, logos, or color schemes. You also might want to inform your users, what's the name of your organization? What's the purpose? Do you have a mission statement? This is all stuff that's perfect to put on the homepage of your ArcGIS Enterprise portal. And then lastly, the saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Well, unfortunately, people do, and we're on the internet where they're even more judgy, so it's really good to have a professional looking, aesthetic, and well-organized homepage. Here's an example of how we have so far customized our homepage. So on the top left is the out-of-the-box enterprise portal. This is the homepage that will open after you've installed Portal for ArcGIS and configured it. And the bottom right is how we have set it up for the conference. We've configured the homepage to have a unique background. We've also made a descriptive banner, and then also we've had featured contents which contain popular maps and apps. In the next demo, I'll show you how to customize the homepage with these changes, and then a little bit more as well. So back on over. So can you see the screen up there? Yeah, okay. So I'm here. This is the homepage that we've configured so far with the background, the banner, and the featured content. If I go back to the organization page and I go to the settings option, then I can do some further customizing. So I'm going to start with the homepage button because it says homepage. And you can see here that this is where we've uploaded an existing background image and also a custom banner. And we've customized the featured content here. If you had any other groups that you wanted to use instead, you're more than welcome to do that, and you can do other customizations like the number of items to display and how they're sorted, etc. But the other customizing that we want to do is actually in the General tab. So in the General tab, you can make changes like the logo and the name of your ArcGIS Enterprise organization, and then you can also modify the description. Now this is a descriptive piece of text that appears on the homepage. Usually it has kind of a default blurb about ArcGIS Enterprise, but what we really wanted to show here is that there's a lot of flexibility at this part. You can do things like input custom HTML, and that's exactly what we've done. So we made a HTML code, which is just a table, a 3x3 table that contains links to helpful resources or content in our portal, and we're going to put that into our enterprise. So highlighting it, copy, paste, or control, sorry. Back over here, we're going to click on this button, which views HTML source, because otherwise you have a rich text editor, but that won't work with HTML. So when we click that, everything grays out, and we're going to paste our HTML in there. Once we click this again, it'll validate the HTML and actually give us a preview of what that looks like. We're going to check this button to show it towards the bottom of the homepage because otherwise it might obfuscate our featured maps and apps or other descriptive banners that we've made. You might have to play around with that with your own custom HTML. We're going to hit save. While this saves, we're going to actually have a copy of this HTML script on hand on the island, so if you did want a sample of it, you're more than welcome to come by and we'll give it to you if you have like a flash drive or something, or give us your business card and we'll email it to you. But going back to the homepage, now you see we have what we did before, but now we have an additional table that has some common workflows and new features. These are all URLs that will go to open up a new map, maybe show documentation on how to cluster your points, etc. So we just made this as a sample to show just how versatile and powerful you really can customize the homepage with. Back to me again. So we would be remiss if we didn't also mention ArcGIS Enterprise sites. That is also a really big and much requested feature with ArcGIS Enterprise. This is something where you can build a tailored web page that is a unique experience for different users or groups of users. In this screenshot here, we have, say it's a county ArcGIS Enterprise portal, but maybe they want a page that is specific for the police department. So you can create a site just for that specific purpose and populate it with maps, content, and other links that you'd like. We actually have a session coming up for ArcGIS Enterprise sites on Thursday. So if you have some questions about that, please feel free to attend that session. And I think we have people in the showcase who are also showcasing sites. So you're more than welcome to come and talk with them and pick their brains.
All right. As Thomas just described, much of your responsibilities as an administrator during the initial configuration is getting your enterprise deployment running, securing your organization, and adding customizations to identify and create a more tailored experience for your users. Now switching lanes a bit here, I'm going to talk about the responsibilities of an administrator on a daily basis. For the purpose of this presentation, we've narrowed down the daily administrative tasks to managing your users and monitoring your organization. So I'm going to take a deeper dive into the administrative responsibilities and workflows related to user management. It is your job as an administrator to make sure your users have what they need to be successful. This involves tasks such as managing who has access to your organization. This can involve adding, disabling, or deleting members. It is your responsibility to ensure that your members have the required capabilities and privileges to perform their duties. This involves identifying the workflows your members need to perform and assigning them the appropriate user type and role to complete their work. In addition, administrators need to make sure that users have access to the applications that they need to be successful. And with the flexibility of the new user type licensing, it is easier than ever to ensure that your users have the exact suite of capabilities and privileges and add-on applications that they need. So next I'm going to demo managing your users and licenses. So I'm going to go through the workflow of importing a new license file and troubleshooting a common issue that can occur when you import a new file. I'm going to add a new member to the portal, which may seem like an elementary workflow, but it's changed quite a bit with the new user type licensing, so I think it's worth showing. So let's jump in. Can everyone see my portal? All right, perfect. So I'm back on the organization page and I'm signed in as myself, an administrator. So I'm going to go take a look at my current member licensing. So you'll see here, Hillary and John are assigned the creator user type and the data editor role. John and Hillary only need the ability to edit data shared to them to perform their daily tasks. They are currently assigned the creator user type, which is full capabilities. And their capabilities or privileges are restricted to viewing and editing content through the data editor role. A better licensing option for these users would be to assign them the editor user type, which only has the view and edit capabilities, and the data editor role. So let's go back to our licensing tab and take a look at our user types. Again, we only have creator and viewer currently licensed. So to get the new editor user type, I'm going to have to go back into my Esri and create another portal license file. This license file will contain the current licenses that my enterprise portal has with the additional data editor user type. So for the sake of time, I've already gone through that process and I've created a license file from portal. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the import licenses button on the licenses tab here. I'm going to browse to my portal license file, portal new. Yep. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to click Import. Here you're warned that this will replace your current user type and add-on licenses with those within the selective file. When I created the file from my Esri, I created it with this in mind. I have all my current licenses with the additional editor user type. So I'm going to click OK, and now the file is importing. After the file is imported, I'm going to receive a few notices. The first one here is that I've imported a license file that contains one or more applications that require licensing with the Enterprise Portal's ArcGIS License Server Administrator, or License Manager as you may know it. So we're receiving this notice because my license file contains ArcGIS Pro, which requires additional licensing through the License Manager. So I'm not going to go into that process, but if you guys are curious or want to see that workflow, I suggest that you stop by the showcase and I can step you through that. So I'm going to click OK. And on the Overview tab, you'll receive a notice. You may receive a notice. The number of licenses assigned exceeds the number of licenses available. So if you see this, don't panic. I'm going to show you how you can figure out what's wrong and how to solve the issue. So I'm going to click OK. Let's go back to the Licenses tab and see what's going on. So here you'll see I have a new additional ArcGIS Pro Advanced license that I've added, and additional licenses for some of these other applications. But I'm more concerned about my user type licenses. Here you can see that the Creator license has 5 assigned and -1 available. So I've put this user type into overdraft. And now you can see that the new editor user type that I had included in my file is now licensed. So to solve this issue, I'm going to go back to my Members tab. I'm going to select Hillary and John, and in bulk, I'm going to manage their user type. So here, I'm going to assign Hillary and John the new editor user type. I receive a warning here or a notice that members with this user type may not own items or groups, belong to groups with update capabilities enabled, or be assigned an incompatible add-on license. I understand this, so I'm going to click Save. Here you'll see that Hillary and John have now been updated to the editor user type and remain the data editor role. If I go back to my, If I go back to my licenses and the user type tab, you'll see that all is well. For Creator, I have 3 licenses assigned, 1 available, and the editor user type has 2 licenses assigned and 0 available. If I go back to the Overview tab, you'll see I'm no longer prompted with that warning. All right, so now I'm going to add a new member to my portal. So from the Members tab, I'm going to click Add Members. Here I have the option to add built-in portal members, add members for enterprise logins using SAML, or add members based on an existing enterprise users. These last 2 options are grayed out because I haven't configured my portal to support this, so I'm going to add new built-in portal member. Here I'll see the option to add a new member individually or from a file. And if you had attended Thomas's previous session, I believe he showed adding new members from a file already. So I'm not going to go through that, but if you want to see that, feel free to stop by the showcase and I'd be happy to show you. So I'm going to click New Member. Here I'll input some of my new members' information, really original, John Doe. Enter his email and his username is automatically populated. And here, if I click on the user type dropdown, I'll see a list of the currently configured user types that I could assign to my new user. Here I can see the number of licenses available for that user type, as well as the compatible roles. So I'm going to go ahead and assign John Doe the creator user type because I want to assign him the publisher role. And I'll give him a super secret password. Next, you'll just see a list of the members that you're about to add. In this case, there's only 1 member. You can see some other information, such as their user type, their role, and the included licenses. These are the app bundles that are included in the creator user type. I'm going to go ahead and click Next. Here, directly in the Add Members UI, you're able to assign applications to your users. This is new at 10.7. So I'm going to assign John Doe the ArcGIS Pro Advanced, all extensions, and insights. In addition, I'm able to add John Doe to any groups available in my organization directly through the Add Member dialog. I'm also able to specify some member settings, such as profile visibility, language, new at 10.7, number and date format, and the start page. And the start page is just the page that opens when this user will first sign into the enterprise portal. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to click Next. Here's just a summary of the users, in this case user, that is being added to the portal. You can see the settings that I had selected, the add-on licenses that they will be assigned, and the groups that they are now a member of. So I'm going to click Add Member. You can see John Doe has been added to my portal with the user type creator and the publisher role. So that's the end of my demo. There's a lot of other administrative workflows related to user management that we could have shown. If you're interested in exploring user management further, I suggest that you stop by the showcase, and I'd be happy to show you. Thanks.
Thank you, Marley. So next up, we're going to talk about the importance of monitoring your organization. As an administrator, you're going to be expected to have a full understanding of how your organization is operating, and we want to show you some methods that you can use to do this. So there are 5 members for monitoring that we have identified here, and we're just going to step through each of these and kind of explain them. So logging, as you know, is super important for any product or application, and we have a wealth of information in the enterprise logs that can help you monitor and mainly troubleshoot any issues. And as admins, the most important thing that you should know is where to access them. So Portal has an administrator directory where you can query for logs and get useful information. If your enterprise is using collaboration, for example, some good information can be seen here if you're having any issues with collaboration. Those show up in the Portal logs. Now, ArcGIS Server has logs that are mainly exposed over ArcGIS Server Manager, but there's also the ArcGIS Server Administrator directory. So these are kind of the same logs, but with ArcGIS Server Manager, it's the ideal place to search through them thanks to the UI, where you can really easily kind of look through things. But there's also some workflows that use new capabilities that are currently only available through the server's administrator directory. So that's a good thing to be aware of. And if you have questions about logging and monitoring, you're more than welcome to come talk with us afterwards. So ArcGIS Server, I was trying to show that it also uses those directories. ArcGIS Data Store logs are also available by querying both ArcGIS Server Manager and the administrator directory. There are different levels to the logging, as any logging framework should have. The default is warning, and so that will be enabled when you first install and configure your ArcGIS Enterprise. But the levels go all the way from severe up to debug. Now, debug is something that we recommend for troubleshooting mainly, not something that's recommended in a production environment for extended periods of time, because it really generates a lot of logs and it can affect the performance of your enterprise by filling up your disk space very quickly. Warning, however, is something that needs to be looked into. It might not be causing major failures, but it's something that you should be aware of, so that's enabled by default. Severe is a bad failure that does need to be looked into, so a service not being accessible when a request is sent or a publishing failure. I should mention that these also are, what's the word, they scale. So if you had warning enabled, you're going to get severe and warning logs. If you had verbose enabled, you would get severe, warning, info, fine, and verbose. So the level that you set is kind of the upper limit of what kind of logs you do get. Up next is server usage statistics. This is a useful tool with ArcGIS Server for monitoring your usage. This also includes hosted services and your server's published services. This can be found in ArcGIS Server Manager in the Logs tab, and I have a small animation that can demonstrate this. What it's really showing is that you have the ability to see metrics about not just individual services, but also folders, maybe groups of services, and also your entire site. The metrics that you can see here are things like the total number of requests, the maximum response times, the number of timeouts, or the counts of running instances for your services. And you can query by different time spans that are selectable. The outputs of this can also be exported to CSV, so this is a great thing to have in your back pocket. There we go. Whoop, one more. Oh, sorry, I'm going backwards. There we go. This is a great thing to have. So next up is the activity dashboard. This is something that's available in the ArcGIS Enterprise portal, and this gives you metrics of how your content members and groups are created and consumed. So this is kind of like the server usage statistics, but focused on your portal content, being layers and maps and apps. This is easily accessible from the organization page and is also something we recommend taking a look at. So ArcGIS Monitor is a tool that's tailored to monitor the health of your ArcGIS implementations throughout their life cycle. It provides awareness of your system usage and your performance and helps you get the most from your deployment. It works on all system tiers, providing metrics not just for ArcGIS Enterprise, but also for your databases and your networks. So this gives you a holistic view of your entire system and lets you as an administrator quickly diagnose problems such as unstable infrastructure or bottlenecks. The system also does alerting and notification of administrators, which allows for quicker detection of potential problems. But we do have a session coming up on Thursday and on Friday where the people that developed it and designed it will talk to you about it a lot more than I can talk about it. So we highly recommend that you go over to that session or maybe find the ArcGIS Monitor section in the enterprise area. They have lots of great walkthroughs and sample areas that they can demonstrate to you. Also, new at 10.7 is webhooks. We have another session for that coming up tomorrow, but as a gist, what this is it lets you provide additional monitoring options where you can connect your ArcGIS Enterprise to a third-party service, like Zapier, for example, and it lets you configure actions such as email notifications whenever identified events happen associated with your organization's members, groups, or content. So for example, you can receive an email whenever somebody publishes a new item to your portal, or even when they delete something from your portal, when a new group is created, or even when a new person joins your organization. Highly recommend going to this session if you want to learn more about webhooks. It's a really cool new functionality. So I'm going to do the last demo of the day here for monitoring your organization. And for that, I'm going to do a brief overview of the portal logs, because those are in the portal administrator endpoint. And then I'm going to go into the ArcGIS server logs and show you where you can find that and some of the things you can do there. Cool. So I'm here in the portal administrator directory. For those that have never been here before, you can get to it by going to your machine's your domain, followed by your portal web adapter, and then portal admin. So Marley's machine /portal /portal admin. This takes you to a root directory where you can look at some really helpful information about your ArcGIS Enterprise. And like I said, this is kind of a visualization of our API. When you click on the logs, you can see other things here. You can look at your log settings. And that shows you that right now our ArcGIS Enterprise has debug logs with a maximum age of 90 days that the files are stored. And this is where the logs are located. I can press the edit button and I can edit these however I want. I can change the default log level if I want to, and all those other things. I'm going to keep it as debug for now though. You can go in here and query, and this lets you do a query of the log messages. You can choose which log level you would like to do. Because I've been logging at debug, then I've been capturing all of those. So if I did something like info for all times and hit query, you'll get an overview of all of the different things that happened on this portal, and hopefully it'll load. You can do things like also specify the start and the end times and how much messages you'd like to see. Now that should work. Now while that's going along, I'm gonna go over to Server Manager. So I showed an animation of ArcGIS Server Manager. So we have a lot of really great things that you can do here, but I want to focus on the logs button. When you hit the logs button, this is just a nicer interface for interacting with the logs, but very similar to the portal admin endpoint logs. You can do things like hit the settings here. We're using debug level. We have all the same settings here, but maybe a different path. One thing you can do here, which is cool, is hit the columns button. Now this shows all the different columns for information that you'd like to see with your logs. And at 10.7, we have this really neat functionality called request ID. I won't get too deep into this, but essentially when you perform operations on your server, now that is assigned with a single request ID. So if you were doing something like troubleshooting a publishing workflow and you got that request ID, you can query by that and see all of the operations that happened associated with that one request. I'm going to turn that on, and when you do that, it makes you have to scroll a little bit, but you can see request ID as an option in your logs. Now, you can do different log filters here. You can go severe warning, info fine, and you can also configure the age for how often you want to query. One cool thing here is the source. So you can actually specifically query every component that's published to your ArcGIS server, whether that's the framework, your data store, all services, or even going down to specific services that are published. So if you're troubleshooting specifically a publishing issue, you might want to find your publishing tools and look at those, which are, wait, where are they? There they are, publishing tools. So We're just going to go through and do all. Let's take a look at this. Oh, wow, we have nothing. There's a lot of processing. But if we go over here and we do a query for this within the last hour, let's see if anything shows up. I'm not sure if it will. But essentially, it will query based on the parameters that you've configured and then show you an output. If you were to use the server administrator endpoint, you can do all this as well, but it also gives you the ability to query your logs by the request ID. That's something that's coming in ArcGIS Server Manager in a future release, but right now it's just available through the administrative endpoint. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's not working, but
Come to the showcase.
we'll move on. Yeah. So going back to this, we wanted to follow up with some quick tips for your administration workflows. First off, we strongly recommend that you have backups for your system. ArcGIS Data Store, Server, and Portal all have backup and restore workflows that you should look into and be aware of. Next up, you might find yourself troubleshooting something in your system where you might think that you should unfederate your ArcGIS server from Portal to proceed with troubleshooting. Highly recommend that you do not go down that path. Without going too deep into it, when you federate your portal and your server, a linkage is made between the services on your server and an item ID in your portal, which connects all of those together. And when you break your federation, those item IDs no longer revert to the proper endpoints. So a lot of your apps and your layers and your maps in your portal will suddenly seem like they have nothing attached to them when really the linkage has just been broken. Trust us when we say that most workflows can be addressed without ever needing to unfederate. So if you are having an issue right now, come and talk to us. We also recommend that you have more than one administrator in your organization. It's really good to have just in case one of your administrators suddenly doesn't come into work anymore. So that way you have another back-end endpoint to get in. And then lastly, we want you to take advantage of all of the enterprise capabilities that we have. I went into the REST API, but we also have the Python API that can hook into the REST API and make requests to it. We have distributed collaboration, which we didn't go into today, but it's a great way to share your content across to other portals or ArcGIS Online. Custom roles is a way that you can further customize the way that roles are handled in ArcGIS Enterprise and make roles that are specifically tailored for purposeful workflows, such as contractors, for example. And then lastly, webhooks, which we talked about before. If we had to firmly recommend two things, we would recommend to always have a backup and to not unfederate, however. If those are two things that you want to take out of this session, those should be the two. So to follow up, we just have some helpful links. Our documentation, of course, is great, but specifically the sections on configuring your portal website, managing access to your portal, securing it, and administering your federated server is great, as well as the common administrative tasks. There is a product called ArcGIS Online Assistant. I'm not sure how many of you know this exists, but it's a really great tool that you can use. It also works with ArcGIS Enterprise. Don't let the name fool you. And it's also available on Git if you wanted to make a copy of it for your own local use on your own servers. Tech support we always like to recommend. There's a lot of great talent there and people that can really get to the bottom of your issues quickly, as well as ourselves in the ArcGIS Enterprise area in the Esri Showcase. We're gonna also just plug some other sessions right now. Wait, that's not, is that right? Yeah, so we have a distributed collaboration session coming up on Wednesday, not up next, and not in this room. Sorry about that. We also have an architecting your deployment session on Wednesday, as well as a threat mitigation and prevention in ArcGIS Enterprise, which is a really good security session. And then lastly, ArcGIS Enterprise, the road ahead, is a really good section where you can find out what's being planned for the future of ArcGIS Enterprise. Lastly, we want to recommend that you take our survey on the app. That will really help us understand what was helpful for you, what was not helpful, how can we improve this for next year, and hopefully we'll get better next year. Great, so I'd like to open the floor for questions now. And yeah, thank you guys for attending. I'll start over there, and then go to you. So the question was, so if I understand correctly, the difference between the creator role and like a level 2 user and customizing its capabilities? Editor versus, okay. Right.
Yes. So basically, the user type determines the capabilities that your user has, whereas a role determines the privileges. So in the current version that it sounds like you're on, a level 2 has the full capabilities, which includes they could be an administrator, so they can add, delete, manage users, and manage content, but yet you can assign them the viewer role if you want, so then they're then restricted down to only view data. So it's the levels that determine capabilities, and now it's the user type that determines capabilities, but the concept of the roles in limiting or adding privileges remains the same. And I can, if you want to talk after, we can go through some examples too. So.
Which limitation are you talking about? 200? 200 ArcSocs? Yes.
We have that.
Yep. Yep. So, yeah. So the gentleman was referring to a technology that we have called ArcSocs. We didn't really touch on it in this session, but essentially, does everybody here know what an instance is for a service? No? Okay. So when you publish a server, you have instances running behind it, which are tied to things called ArcSocs. Now these are operating system level processes running on Java, which do all of the operation handling for the services. I can't speak specifically for whether we have addressed any issues with the 200 maximum level, but we do have some cool capabilities at 10.7 with things such as dedicated instances versus shared instances, where some of your services can actually share ArcSocs. So I highly recommend that you probably go by our section and talk with the server folks. Yeah, they can help you out there and hopefully get you on the right track. We had another question over there, and then any others? Yes. That's a good question. The question was, can the field worker user type only edit through field apps, or can they also edit in the ArcGIS Enterprise portal?
Yeah, they can also edit through the enterprise portal, similar to the editor user type. But we can talk more about it after if you want to go through, and maybe we can find the solution that you're looking for. Yeah.
Great. There was one question over there.
So you can customize the homepage, but can you customize the content page header?
Right. That's a great piece of feedback. We've heard that one a bunch. So the question is, you can customize the homepage, but can you customize the banner for ArcGIS Enterprise? So that banner up on the top that's blue that has all the links on it. So currently you're not able to customize that banner. That's definitely some feedback that we are collecting. There is some capabilities by modifying a JavaScript file on the back end where you could add like a custom banner on the top of your enterprise. I know that doesn't quite solve the issue, but that does give you some level of versatility in terms of having kind of a message at the top of your page. But yeah, currently the customizing is mainly on the home page and then using enterprise sites to kind of deliver a tailored experience. No problem. Question right there. Okay. Okay, so the question was on whether you can customize like the SVGs and the icons used by the ArcGIS Enterprise, like the portal site. So that would be like the fonts, am I correct? Or just the icons? Okay, I don't think that we have the capability to use custom fonts, but that's some good feedback. I'd be curious to talk with you later. Maybe get some examples of where you'd like to see customizing happen. I'll talk with you after. Great. Is there any other over there? Yes, sir. counts of like kind of metrics like how many users you have in. So in the server statistics page that I mentioned, you can do queries on specific items, not just server services, but also hosted services that are in the data store. So you can use server statistics to get some kind of monitoring of kind of number of requests and whatnot. ArcGIS Monitor also provides that as well, if you're curious. And I don't think that our usage statistics page in the ArcGIS Enterprise portal shows number of hits. I think it shows more like number of items created or things like that, like an overview of the content itself. So yeah, I think you might have some luck with the server statistics. And yeah, with the server statistics, you can also access it through the administrative endpoint and export those logs out. So you can kind of set up a cadence of regular reporting and monitoring happening there. You had a question, sir?
Yeah, is it still the basic, standard, and advanced levels of Enterprise?
Oh, the basic, standard, and advanced for ArcGIS server licensing?
Well, portal's done the same way as server?
It's a little bit different now. So when you're licensing your portal, you're really licensing the users.
Yeah, the
and
named users.
The named users. But with server, I believe you still have that level between advanced and workgroup, or like different types of server.
Yeah, like basic, standard, and advanced, and you would still license it in the same way that you do now. So I mentioned that the portal software authorization wizard was going away. The server software authorization wizard is still there, and you'll receive an authorization file just like you did before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that workflow is still the same. Is there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Upgrade sessions.
Well, we actually have an upgrade session coming up like in 30 minutes here. So they'll definitely be able to answer that. But as I understand it, the upgrade, I mean, you'll see a difference as you go through the upgrade, but it should be fully supported to go from the version you're at to the version that you'd like to go to. So sorry, yeah, Nicole will help. Any other questions? Oh, good question. So we do not have a link to the slides right now, but if you come by, we'll be happy to give it to you. If you give us your business card, that goes to everybody in the room as well.
I think they're going to be shared
Yeah,
as well through the conference after, but yeah, if you want us to just email the slides, we have no problem with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think that's all for questions. Thank you guys very much.